It is one thing to be managing your debt when you're gainfully employed. It is a whole other thing if you've got a significant level of debt, but you have lost your job. What are you supposed to do? Who are you supposed to call? What are the actions that'll make the biggest difference? That is the focus of our next conversation. Randolph Taylor is an accredited financial counselor at Credit Canada, and he joins us now with some insight on his decades of experience working with individuals in just these circumstances. Hello, Randolph.
Hello, Bruce. I appreciate you having me on.
If there is someone who is in the circumstance of losing their job and they've got a lot of debt, they're managing a lot of debt, what are some of the first things that you would recommend that they do?
First things, Bruce, would be to secure a source of income. Apply for EI. Let's ensure that you have enough income coming in to support your expenses around the house. Keep a roof over your head, keep food on the table.
That's the number one thing.
Number one.
And for
Number one.
sure that is urgent. So they've
Mhm.
secured, hopefully they're in a job where they qualify for EI. Not everybody does. What are the scenarios in which someone wouldn't qualify for EI? Like maybe they're a freelancer or they run their own business. Do they have any options?
Yeah, that's a good question. I believe I read about a program that exists for some that are self-employed that they can pay into EI on their own,
Yeah.
but it's not common. Most people that I've met with over the years that are self-employed or freelancer, they're not paying, they haven't paid into EI. So when an unfortunate employment scenario arises, they're sort of left out in the cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Creditors.
Mhm.
How do you handle the conversation with creditors? I mean, my hunch is you're going to want to be proactive.
Proactive communication is key. And something I've said to a lot of my clients over the years, Bruce, is you are essentially in a relationship with the creditor. So whoever you owe, bank or financial institution, you are in a relationship with them, albeit a financial relationship. It is a relationship nonetheless. And what is the most important thing in any relationship, whether that's with a family member, a friend, a spouse, whoever it might be? Communication. So communication is the number one thing. Let them know what's going on, advise them that your circumstances have changed, and see what options they might have to help you.
What in order to manage people's expectations, what kinds of options could they offer? And I bet you're going to tell me that it's different if it's a mortgage versus a credit card versus a utility bill. What are some of the things that people may be able to request?
Yep. So sometimes a creditor might be open to bringing interest rates down. Sometimes there's a hardship program that a company might be able to offer them, no interest for maybe a certain amount of time or reduced payment over a certain period of time. So different creditors might be able to offer different things. For example, student loans may be able to provide you with certain assistance that a credit card can't. So really, most important thing, reach out to the specific company you owe, explain to them what's going on, and see what options are available with them.
I This is a tough question, but I can ask it anyway. What differences do you notice on secured debt, like a
Mhm.
mortgage, versus unsecured debt, like a credit card bill? Is one or the other more forgiving, less forgiving?
I find with mortgages, there's often a bit more give, a bit more leeway. I've often spoken with people who needed to miss a mortgage payment, and the mortgage company said, you know what, that's fine. You've been great for all these years. One missed mortgage payment. Now, as a side note, there's still going to be interest charged,
Yeah.
but they will permit that one mortgage payment to be missed in the event that you find yourself in a predicament where you are unable to service and maintain the payment that is required.
If you are proactive and you call and you make this deal with your mortgage lender that you're going to skip that payment, do they still report that back to the credit bureau? Are you still going to get a hit on your credit score? Or because you were proactive, will they cut you some slack?
Communication here again. So my experience has been no. So if you communicate with them, you and them have an amicable arrangement where they understand what's going on, they're okay with you missing that payment, then they often will not report it as a derogatory or a mispayment of any kind to the credit bureaus. Communication, open line communication is key.
Most people kind of like sleepwalk their way through life when it comes to finances. As long as they're able to pay those basic bills, that is really the standard for a lot of people. When you lose your job, your income is going to decline. Even if you've got EI, it's going to decline. So it seems to raise significantly the importance of doing a budget. What should those numbers on the piece of paper look like? What is the bare bones of what that budget should look like after you get word that you're being laid off?
Right. So we need to focus on the priorities. We need to really focus in on developing a budget that's more revised, that's going to reflect the changes that you're now going through, right? So anything that is non-essential, the coffees, the going out with the friends, we need to kind of scale that back until there's more clarity. There's more, we have a better sense as to what the future is going to hold. Focus on the priorities. Make sure that the rent is paid, the mortgage is paid, groceries are the fridge has been filled up with food. Let's focus on the essential, the priority expenses, and let's try to scale back a bit on the non-essentials, the non-priorities.
I think one of the many things you and I would agree on is that we wish people would call a nonprofit credit counselor
Oh
earlier
yes.
than they do. So if
Yes.
that's the overarching message, everybody should just call earlier. When do you think someone should call if they have lost their job? Is it the day they've lost their job and they look at their financials and think there's no way I'm going to be able to make my monthly minimums on those credit cards? Or did they kind of play around this for a month or two and see how it shakes out?
Yeah, yeah. I would love for people to call as early as they can. As soon as there's any whiff, any wind of there being a change to your financial circumstances, and you realize that there's no savings, there's no backup to help you through, give us a call. I was just speaking with someone who has a lot of anxiety building up because of the tariffs, right? So she's in the auto sector, and there's a lot of anxiety. She's not behind in payments, but there is debt, right? And she's been maintaining the debt. The potential unemployment sure isn't going to help, but she called in to get be proactive to get some information about what can she do in the event that a situation were to befall her where she's unable to maintain payments as they become due. So being proactive, Bruce, is I think is very key.
Nonprofit credit counselors like you provide lots of services. You listen, you validate, you empathize, and you provide some advice in terms of, pointing people to education or budgeting resources, financial coaching, but also like a pretty detailed debt assessment that can illuminate whether or not some sort of a program would make sense. So earlier in the show, we talked about a consumer proposal and bankruptcy. But I want to ask you about the debt consolidation program that you spend a lot of time talking to people about. Where does this tend to fit for someone who has lost their job? What are the sorts of questions that you would ask to see if that makes sense?
Yeah, good question, Bruce. So the first question I would ask is what type of debt do they have? Is it income taxes? Is it student loans? Is it credit card debt? Once I've determined what type of debt that is, then we need to look at how much. Are we looking at 5,000, 10,000, 25, right? Now, once we've assessed those things, and I'll be able to get a feel as to if they were to proceed with an option like a debt consolidation program to enable them to reduce their interest rates and get a more affordable payment each month, will whatever this payment is going to fit nicely within the realm of what their financial picture, their new financial picture um, can what they will be able to afford to do if when they become unemployed, or if they will be if they're expecting to become unemployed soon. So look at the debt, see what the payment is, and see if whatever that payment would be would fit within the realm of what they can realistically afford.
If that is the recommendation, what would you say are the top 2 to 3 benefits of someone doing a debt consolidation program? And separately, what are the top 2 to 3 costs or negatives associated with doing a debt consolidation program?
Yeah, so let's start with the pros. Just, I mean, there's a lot of people that actually have said, from a moral standpoint, Bruce, from a moral standpoint, they want to pay their debt. They incurred the debt, they got the benefit of the credit card or whatever it was, they want to pay it back. So, from a moral standpoint, a lot of people out there feel like the debt consolidation program is a good option because it enables them to get out of debt in a more affordable way because the interest rate has been stopped. Number two, It would be the more affordable payment, right? The payment that is required under the debt consolidation program is often much lower than the interest rate that they're paying to, sorry, than the payment, including the interest rate that they're paying to their debts now, right? So those I think would be the top two that come to mind. You know, the other things, I guess, the two cons or the two not so great side of about, let's say, doing a program like this is the fact that the credit will be closed. A lot of people are used to using credit, having access to credit at their fingertips. When doing a program like this, that access is gone. Now, in many respects, this is a good thing, right? It can help a person to rehabilitate how they think and how they operate and can build new and better habits long term. But in the short term, it can seem like something that's not so great. And maybe the other thing is the impact on the credit report, although not as severe as a proposal or a consumer proposal or a bankruptcy would be. There can be a bit of a downtick a bit on the credit score, right? So those would probably be the big things. But all these things are short-term pain for long-term gain.
Mm. Last question. So, what would you say to our listener who's lost their job and is just terrified about picking up the phone? You're a friendly guy, but they might be concerned about what that initial conversation sounds like, or how they'll feel like they're going to be judged, or something like that. What would you say to reassure them that it is a safe and helpful conversation to have?
What I would say, Bruce, job loss is tough, but with a plan, you can get through it. So give us a call. Let's talk about what's going on. Let's find the best solution to get you out of debt, get into a good life.
Yeah. Awesome. That's great. Randolph, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Bruce.
Randolph Taylor, Accredited Financial Counselor at Credit Canada. He was here to talk about job loss and the actions that you can take to manage your debt, if that is the circumstance or the deck you have been handed.